Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business and life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to learn how to do business and live life to make an impact in the world. We all do that, we can change the world. While we're listening to my incredible guest today, which is truly incredible, how will you serve today? Think about that. And what impact will you create today with that servitude attitude? I just made that up. Servitude attitude. That's pretty good. Well, talk about impact. As you all know, listening to my podcast, I have a number of veterans on who are making an impact in the veterans world, which I think it's a passion of mine. I've never served, but this is a way for me to give back to veterans who are struggling these days and who need help. My incredible guest today is doing that and much more. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for inviting me here. I think I'm honored, for this opportunity, to share my story.
Well, I first want to thank you for your service. That is utmost important, first and foremost. But you're a veteran. What motivates you to do what you do to help veterans?
Go back to the origin of why am I a veteran? I think it was my innate ability and desire to serve my country. And what I realized, all veterans are veterans, and veterans are also still servants. So I wear both hats right now. Being a veteran, being a servant, you don't stop serving until the end. That's just my makeup. So that within itself is just innate.
You just answered why I have veterans on my show. You guys are living it. You said 20 years. You've been, 20 years you served. You've been serving every 28.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Add 8 more, even more. This is experience, but you guys get servant attitude. You get servitude. Tell me more what you learned from the military that gave you that mentality.
What you find over time, you find out who you really are. I mean, we all set out to do things in life, and once you get there, you start doing it, you realize, hey, man, this is who I am. And, it's a symbiotic relationship. That environment within itself, you're around people that with the same mentality, same personality. So you're not concerned about, someone taking advantage of who you are, this, that. We're all the same people. We look at each other. We're all joined for the same reason. I remember when I was commanding officer of the USS Lassen out of Yokosuka, Japan, I spoke to my crew once, and I said, we all come from different backgrounds. And there are also some challenges in our country with people that come from different backgrounds. But we left our hometowns for reasons. Whatever challenges that existed there, we left that to become better people. So now we're here as one. So it's not so important where we came from, what we left. It's where we aiming to go. We all in the same place with the same vision. That's to serve our country and make the places better and do right by people.
I love that. See, this again, why I have veterans on here. You guys get it. What's the challenges when veterans come back or come out of the military that you love to help?
Sometimes I just go a step back. When I was serving, I commanded 4 different ships, patrol coastal, a couple of destroyers and the destroyer squadron, where I had 7 ships under my command. People oftentimes transfer out of the military, and they transfer out for different reasons. Some of them not really ready to transfer. They have bad experiences, this and that, and they go against their heart and they leave the service. I said, so what are you going to do once you go on the outside? And a lot of them just don't know. And so I say that to set the stage for once I'm out here, you see those same people that left that was not really ready to go. They get out here and they still lost and they're confused. They're not doing what was at their heart sometimes. And you have the other set of veterans that retire. And what you'll find is a dichotomy of veterans. You'll find the veterans that really just still desire to serve and just lost their way because things didn't, turn out the way they sort of anticipated. And then you got the other set of veterans that they're still serving those veterans. So those are 2 dichotomies there. So you have to find out where are you needed. And some people like myself who felt I had great opportunities there, I figured it out and I was fortunate. So I think the onus is on me to help those veterans who I still desire to serve in some capacity. In fact, I was at an event that was hosted by one of the council members in the city of Norfolk just last week. It was Iron Sharpen Iron. And it was a lot of high-end people there, a couple of high-end politicians, the mayor of Norfolk there, the police chief, et cetera. I saw a gentleman sitting off to the side. I just went over and started talking with him. He said, I've been away from here for 40 years. I left from Newport News, joined the Army, stayed in Buffalo, New York, and I was homeless for, the last 10 years of my life. I came home and people here in Norfolk trying to help me, and he's there with the, with the heavies, trying to figure his way out, and I looked at him, I said, the story is nowhere near where mine is, but He's still a veteran. He's a service guy. He's just looking for his way. And I was just so happy. I could not have selected a better person to talk with. And I had tons of choices there between a high-end politician and a homeless veteran. And he was there in a shelter. And it was just as powerful talking with him. And
That's a
that,
great story. Oh my gosh, that's you can help the big, you can help the small, and it should be a community. And that's why I love the veteran and military community. One thing I learned from one of my guests was he said when he came back, especially from war, and he went to a grocery store and he looked at all the different choices of cereal. Just want to buy one box of cereal. But in the military, you get, everything's set up for you. He goes, it was, yeah, you get it. And I love it. It was interesting to me because never been in the military. So he was confused and it really affected him. Like, I got to make a choice here. Talk more about that choices when they come back from war or come back from serving, how you can help them with that.
As you was just mentioning, yeah, we live in constrained environments where choices are limited. It really gives you strength, the fact that you live in those environments. And the only thing I would tell people, just don't look at across the slew of choices. See what works for you. Sometimes something I think the worst thing that can happen to people is when they have too many opportunities.
Yeah.
I still live by some of the same standards that I, worked in the military with. I just still stay very disciplined in the things I select to do. I don't really desire a lot in that regard. Like I said, with that set of cereal there, I mean, that's one thing the military help us to develop and sustain an ethos. And we can't get outside of that. Sometimes we get lost in that regard. We feel like because more opportunities, we have to do more. No, you do not have to do more. You are who you meant to be, just continue to serve in your capacity and stay within that. And I think you'll find more comfort. I think some people just get overwhelmed with trying to do too much and go outside of who they are.
Leadership's a big component of what you do, which I love. There's not
Yeah.
enough of it. Well, of course, you took some of your military background to do that. What's one thing a veteran has in leadership that non-veterans or non-military people can benefit from?
Diversity, cultural diversity. I got a book,
Mm,
Champion Organizational Wellness. And if you look at that book, first I did my doctorate at Regent University because I wanted to build. I mean, I had all the experience. So what we
mhm.
have, we have experience, boots on the ground. I traveled to over 63 countries and just having that experience. In Navy, we do a lot of diplomacy. I mean, you look at how the country's set up, it's on the dime principles, we call it, diplomacy, information, military, and economics. Okay, so the Navy, go back to the sale of the Great White Fleet, we was involved in a lot of that. So I take that experience and going around 63 countries, working across different cultures, understanding those cultures, appreciating those cultures, and I look back at America, we're a microcosm, of society writ large there. And we have tons of microcultures within America, but sometimes we don't appreciate those microcultures. So I took my Navy experience and brought it back here stateside, went to school, got my doctorate, formalized my experience, codified it, and put it into a book, Champion Organizational Wellness. And it's like a one-stop shop and to help anyone across any arena, sector, what is executive level all the way down to the factory and workers or the boot, we call boots, the deck plate levels, what we call on the ship there. And I took that because I felt it's something I had to offer from that experience, and being who I am from a cultural perspective and where I come from there, sometimes there's difficult for people to connect with other people. And those are the pieces that my book talks about. It talks about self-assessing, navigate, overcoming blind spots, the want self, vice, the alt self, and then the conversation, how do we really link and meet people on their own grounds and terms. And then it goes to cultural ingratiation and often to empowering our people, because we're in a world of co-equals where you can also look across different generations. So that's what we bring back to to the civilian sector. It's just that plethora of experience working with, just a plethora of people and cultures.
A lot we can learn from you. I'm feeling that right now. And that's why, again, I love having guys like you on the show that are veterans. That discipline and everything that you learned in the military is not in the civilian world and needs to come back. Maybe not totally to the boot camp mentality, but at least the discipline and regimented schedules and things like that that would help us civilians. I know it's helped me. With your business, what's your mission?
My mission, you look, it goes back to 9/11. You got all the
Mhm.
stuff on the automation and intelligence world. When I went through two pieces I experienced. When I went through department head school in 1997, the commanding officer of my department head school, that's when I was going for my next level of leadership in the ship. He said, no matter how much technology we put out here in the world, this is always be an analog world. It'll never be a digital world. So I need you guys to learn develop people skills, go out there, be prepared to make tough decisions. Then rewind forward in 2011, I went through what we call Joint Forces Staff College, become a joint qualified officer to learn how the other services work, to pretty much prepare myself to, to oversee any kind of organizations across all forces for the best of the country. So I did my thesis into organization relationship. And we looked at 9/11. We said it was just a plethora of information out there, just big data warehouses, but we didn't know what to pull and to apply. So, and you see what the results of 9/11, it was not available. It was so much, it was overwhelming that we didn't take the cues we had that what was about to happen. So I looked across interorganizational relationships, and I looked at people skills. And then I looked at another piece where we designed our ships to be autonomous. I can go out there and put a destroyer in an auto engage mode. It will fight itself, but it's not going to have any discrimination on battle damage assessment, et cetera, et cetera. So it may indiscriminately fire missiles that on targets that's already been demolished per se. So we always hit this button called man in the loop. So we take the ship auto mode and we go manual, and that's because we have to have people intervention, to assess and work that. So my company is called Bridging People and Technology. Yes, I don't want to be a dinosaur and don't want to leverage technology, but I want to have this 6 gears, about 6 sense, putting the man back into the loop, common sense, people skills, and working on what I call the information highway without burning or eroding people skills. So that's what Bridging People and Technology is all about. I always look at success of command. They say, the art of command is the human, the science of command is technology. So you have to have the human there.
You are singing my praises right now, because I tell people when I mentor businesses, we're in the people asset business. You said people skills twice. And I love that, because we forget that. And you're right, with technology. But if we don't have people in our business, we don't have a business.
That's correct.
So you're taking, taking the digital and kind of making it analog a little bit by going back to the people, correct?
Yes. We get, for instance, like I look at my kids, they'll look at GPS, Google Maps, wherever they go. They don't even look at the landmarks. So, you got a building on the left, turn at this building. Well, they never pay that attention because they're not accustomed to it. They don't understand the landscape because they're so, fixated, what's in GPS. We have to look up and see the world around us, as people. So those skills are eroding because we don't use them. So we have to learn to really appreciate those skills. So I like the old basics, speech course, tone of voice, body language, those type pieces there that really carries the day you're engaging people. That's how you feel people and connect with people.
Game changer audience. That what he just said is $1 million tip. More people, more money. It's just simple as that. And good people, I probably could add to that. And I'm 62, so I know when there was analog world, and I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to ask because that's not my place, but 28 years, we know the analog part of it. So I love what you're doing because it worked. 50 years ago, the world was just as fine with all this technology, but we need to bring it back. What keeps, what's your biggest fear? Now let's talk about technology. What's your biggest fear? AI, any of this stuff give you fear?
I'm gonna go again. I talk about emotional intelligence. What's the social intelligence? That versus technical skills. I was just reading. I'm a big Daniel Goleman. He's from write a lot of stuff at Harvard Business Review, and he got a new book out called Optimal. And one of the pieces he talk about is we get so liquored up on all the technical skills. I'm so excited that you hire people, no matter how technically adept they are. If they don't have social skills and social intelligence, then it's going to become a challenge if they can't engage and interact with people. And my biggest fear, I just think it's customer service is really challenging now, because we don't have people that are really leaders in leadership positions. So I call this pieces in my book called upside down leadership. It's about when you got people in leadership positions that don't have the progression of self-actualization to do right by those people they're overseeing. So they're really doing it on the back of people who are already weak. So they're standing on the shoulder of people that need help. So it's unfortunate. So I term that upside down leadership. That's what keeps me up at night. It's the fact that we are not able to afford people the assets of the people they need to lift them up. And then your good leaders are sort of standing on the sideline, the people that are capable, because now you got a world of the most willing over the most capable. And we have to figure out how to way to head that off and, and with that, and push that in a different direction.
I like that. You said something very interesting, liquored up on technology. I'm going to borrow that because that is a really good analogy of technology. And we do, even analog people like me kind of get caught up in that because I do love tech, but to a point. We have a friend, Oak McCullough, I mentioned before in the green room. He said something about people come up and say they're a leader. And his only question he asks, who you mentoring today? If they're not mentoring anybody, nothing against them, but you're not a true leader yet. Give me more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I spoke with Oakland before. He did a ROTC in the Army there. He's a great guy. He's in the
Yeah.
servant leadership business there. And, I mentor across into a large sector of people. Some people on the business side, most people that deal youth coaching, those one I have a lot of interest in because I really, really concerned with all the youth. And I work close to the schools, the universities. In fact, I've been on the phone with some. I went to Austin Peay State University. You should see my
Yeah.
flag in the background. I was recently inducted into the Military Hall of Fame there. I was the 19th member to gain that honor. And it was only the second class that went through. And so I'm going to engage the university on what can I do to make the students' life better. So I don't like to fixate on just any particular sector, but I really do have interest in it, the people that are more at the formative level, because I think we should be able to make a difference with those that need the models and the examples. And I'm really big on Dr. Erimo's book, leading the diverse leadership, leading the new force there. And you really got to understand how do we reach, millennials and also the Z generation. So that's more so my focus. I have to focus on the people who actually have their hands on those guys in order to make the difference. So that's my target audience, but I like to expand beyond that.
Man, I like that. You're saying such powerful things right now. Well, let's stay in the leadership mode. If somebody reaches out to you and goes, hey, Anthony or Dr. Anthony, let's use it proper. I want to be a servant leader. What are the characteristics of a servant leader I need to have?
It's basic. It's really just going to be really, really basic. You have to, a servant leader, and I coined the term servantship because sometimes the word leader and servant could be paradoxical. Some people they think leaders got to be out front. That's not always the case. What you have to do, you have to be in a position. What servant defines is someone's willing to put their interests second to the people that they're actually leading. You want to make sure the well-beings of those that you're engaged in, and you want to be comfortable enough to slave what you're doing to what it is you want, where they want to go in life. So that's the key of a servant, and I was talking with, one of the key figures at Austin Peay. And I say, he wants to put a committee together to help the student life there. And I say, the bottom line, it's going to be who you put on the committee. It's not the committee. You have to put people in that committee that's already accomplished and established, and they have enough, self-assurance that they can look out for the best interests of those that they are engaged in by trying to grandstand and promote their platform. And that's what I feel the most important piece of being a servant is. You have to be self-actualized in order to do that. And that goes back to Maslow hierarchy of needs. You got some different curves. You get up to the progression curve. And once you experience a certain level of success, and once you've gotten that in life and done well by yourself, then you can afford to help others. And you got to continue to grow yourself to help others. And that's one thing I continue to do. And that's why I read on diversity. That's why I read on artificial intelligence. I look at these problems and I look at how they align to the challenges I have to overcome. So I have to get myself in the right position so I can be better to serve other ones. But you can't serve other ones by serving, standing on them. You have to be able to lift them and put them in a position to make them better. That's the commitment of a servant.
I love about you got to be personal development is so important. We forget that. I love all the books you mentioned reading. You've got a sports background. You were all state football. You got a scholarship at Austin Peay. I played junior college football, so I'm envious because I always wanted to play college. But what did your sports, you got a lot from military. Let's start there. Your background there has helped you. But what did you learn from your sports background that's helped you today or the last few years?
I always like to rewind back. Okay, first, time management. That's the most important thing I learned from college. It's time management, as a football player. But it goes back to my high school. My high school comes from the late Robert J. Armour. In fact, I started a scholarship in his name there, Goodwater, Alabama, small high school. He made academics very, very key in Goodwater. As a result of that, I was an all-state football player. I was probably one of the few, maybe one out of one hand number of people who actually went to college to play Division I football. I was also high school valedictorian. That was because I had a mentor when I was a young kid, who was a principal of the school at Mr. Homer. So he put a lot of emphasis on academics, and that carried over to Austin P as a collegiate athlete. I went there with the right mindset. I said, I'm a student first, and I'm an athlete second. And I said, I look at football different than a lot of people. I look at collegiate sports. I talk about time management, but I looked at it as if, hey, I'm here to get education. Okay. Football is my job. Okay. But my paycheck is my degree. So if I don't go to class, it's like going to work without picking up your check on Friday. So I always emphasize, going to class, and then I had to work through time management. And once I finished collegiate football, I mean, I looked at everything was simple for his work ethic and time management and what have you. I tell people all the time, if you do collegiate as a student athlete and actually go to class as you're supposed to do that, and everything is a walk in the sun. But the problem we had in my university, Austin P, was it's just a lot of athletes didn't value school. They put a lot of effort into football. They was really strong work ethics, really smart kids, but they just had no interest in academics. So that's why I went back and give my high school principal credit for he let us know it was cool to be, to do your work, cool to be smart, we like to say. So it started there, and that just carried on through life. And I continued to build on that from going off from being a collegiate football player. I'm still surrounded by athletes. Mostly I go to Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island. I'm surrounded by tons of academias. So I said, okay, different world here. But I was able to take that background along with sports and balance it out. And then the Navy just has been an environment. The Navy is really strong on leadership, continuous leadership development, and education. I spent a lot of time in the classroom. That's how I managed to get two master degrees while I was in the Navy, and just some of the, the naval schooling that we did there just really helped me to continue to grow. And it pretty much satisfied my natural ability just to be a continuous learner. I do the Gallup Strength Finders, the Clifton Strength Finders there, and my top 5 is actually responsible, intellectual, learner, achiever, and a focus. So that's just once you see who you are, and the Navy just facilitated, that fostered, and that person to cultivate the true, Anthony Simmons, and all that started. We foundational from sports and my high school principal in the institution at Goodwater High School.
Such a positive effect the military has on you, and everybody that follows that same path accentuates what you are. And by the way, you're a valedictorian, as you were an all-state football player. Very rare, because I know a lot of athletes myself. You lived that academia and sports and everything that you said. I'm going to ask a selfish question. Sorry, audience, but this is what I want to ask. What position did you play, and was Austin P a good team back then?
I love your questions. No, I was a high school quarterback, and I always wanted to be a running back. I'm 5'8", okay, and from the time I played Pop Warner, that was 5th, 6th grade. I always wanted to be a quarterback. I miss a running back because I felt I was fast. I was too short to be a quarterback, but the coaches always said, "No, you're going back here to quarterback," because you have a way of making people around you better, et cetera, et cetera. So that just became natural. And I had a couple of schools, Division II programs that looked at me as a quarterback, potentially option quarterback, but Austin P was just running back out the gate there. And we had a really good team. We was good, but it didn't show the results. We was in Ohio Valley Conference, which was a really, really tough football conference at the time. We had Youngstown, Akron, Middle Tennessee, State University, Eastern. Whoever won the OVC would normally be up for the national championship there. We went in my freshman year hoping to win the conference there. Our defense was number 2 in the nation, but we lost our quarterback, early in the season, so it didn't pan out so well. But we did beat Kansas State when I was at Austin P, and that was right after the basketball team that beat Illinois in the NCAA tournament. So that next fall, we flew out to Kansas, Manhattan, a Little Apple. That was my first time ever flying. Went out there and beat those guys, and man, we came back to Clarksville. The streets was lined up, with just tons and tons of people. It was just amazing. But speaking of the program, our record didn't such indicate a good team, but we really had a good team. We had some really good foundational pieces there, and also the coaching staff there was just amazing. And a few of those coaches that was there as assistants went on to become, renowned big figures, at the higher levels. Yeah, one was in particular was Ron Cooper. He's one of the first 2 African-American coaches there. He had Louisville once upon a time, and also he was one of my fraternity brothers. So I had a good relationship with him, so I learned a lot through Coach Cooper there. So
oh my God, yes, I follow college football so a lot, so I know the name. And we're Super Bowls tomorrow, so that's why I wanted to ask. I want to keep this a little football mode. We've run out of time, man. Time flew. This was an incredible show. And I want to thank you for being on. But any lasting comments for the audience?
No, I like what you're doing, and I think I encourage people to follow what you're doing here, Steve. And I just like, your show. You come around the authenticity of it, and that's one of the key pieces to people skills there. And I think you set the stage for that. Some people want to be very mechanical in these podcasts, but the way you're doing it's the right way. And I always felt real comfortable, talking with you and able to get the right messages out. Thanks.
Thank you. And you're right. Being authentic with people skills is probably the hardest thing for people to do because they think they have to be that multi-million-dollar person. You could be 50,000 a year and still serve and help people. I love that. How can people get a hold of you? Because I know you've got so many golden nuggets here.
Yeah, look at my website. I think it's www.sixgearconsulting.com. And it's spells out six, SIXTHGEAR consulting.com. Or you can call me at 901-219-9906. I accept all calls, even the telemarketers. I don't close down any avenues to talk with people.
I've done almost 300 shows. That's the first time that somebody says, I even take telemarketers. This guy's unique. You need to reach out to him. Again, thank you. I appreciate it. And I always say at the end of my podcast, especially with this one, with Anthony, he gave you, in my notes, probably 12 golden nuggets that could change your life and probably could make you millions of dollars. So watch his show a couple of times. What's the beauty of a podcast? You can reverse, you can go forward. You go to 20 minutes, you go to 15 minutes. Do that. You don't need to watch the whole show or listen to the whole show, but grab those tidbits, understand them. And if you don't, reach out to him. I'll also have his information in the show notes. Don't forget my TV show, Together We Serve, every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern. I also have podcast swag, hats, t-shirts, logos, doing business with a servant's heart. Network is your net worth type of nice moment. Quotes on those shirts. I also have Who Are You Serving Today, which is one of my most popular shirts. And as always, I want to thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. See y'all.